welcome to Super Mario 128. It is a creepypasta involving an author's experience with playing the Super Mario 128 tech demo and how it's supposed to be the darkest Mario game ever made, when that title does definitely belong to Super Paper Mario. Just saying. And it also deals with the failure of the GameCube and supposedly how Nintendo tried to keep the console from failing. I somewhat think it was successful with the console. I mean, they did release Twilight Princess and for both the console and the Wii, so it kind of helped, I guess. Okay, enough of me talking. Here's the creepypasta. Mario has been a gaming icon for decades and has been in more games than can be counted. Although no year in recent memory has gone past without some type of Mario game being released. Series fans will remember the nearly decade-long drought of original Mario platformers. I guess you don't have to count Paper Mario, as seeing as that's an RPG. But I can count it as a platformer. Maybe, if you think about it a little bit. Maybe. From 1997 to 2005, there was only one new Mario platformer released. Super Mario Sunshine. I could be wrong, but wasn't there new Super Mario Brothers for the DS and Super Princess Peach? Weren't they released in like 2004 or something like that? Or the Super Mario World games that were released for the Game Boy? Weren't they released during that time? I'm pretty sure. I think. Oh well. During the second part of this drought, after Sunshine's release, the mysterious Super Mario 128 was the main focus of the fanbase. No concrete information was given on the game, and eventually series creator Shigeru Miyamoto claimed it had simply been a series of test concepts that were never intended to be an actual game. The mystery faded from memory as the Mario drought finally ended and most people forgot about that game. That had once been the center of every Mario fan's imagination. The Mario drought corresponded with a bad era for Nintendo in terms of console sales. The Nintendo 64 and GameCube did not have a financial success of the earlier Nintendo Entertainment System and Super Nintendo, or later even the Wii. For a very proud company that relied solely on video games to make money, and amiibos, this was quite upsetting for the higher-ranking employees that were attached to the company and felt its success or failure reflected on them personally. Nintendo started working on a sequel to the 1996 Super Mario 64 shortly after the game was released. But during the late 90s, it became clear that Nintendo was not winning the console war. The Super Mario 64 sequel was restarted from scratch, since the company believed that it was not a substantial enough improvement over the original to turn the tides of the market battle. Seeing the generally more realistic and violent games on the Sony PlayStation, well, I can name a few kids games. One of them, Jersey Devil. I would really love to play that. I really would. That's why I would get a PS1. The market leader, Nintendo, considered making a Mario that was closer to tone what the public seemed to want. Well, not me. I don't really care much for overly violent games. Not very much. And I'm pretty sure there's other people like that. Just don't like the overly violent stuff that goes on in those games. They bother me. There was quite a bit of internal conflict over how far to go with this new direction, and the new Mario was clearly not going to be ready until Nintendo's next console, the GameCube. Best system on Earth. The only hint of that was released to the public was a comment by Miyamoto that he thought Mario and Luigi should act more like grown-ups in their games for the soon-to-be-released GameCube. The new Mario project was ultimately split into two games. Luigi's Mansion, which reflected the darker tone that many felt this series should turn to. Super Paper Mario was kind of like that. Bit darker though in terms of storytelling and sound design and music. Although it was still toned down quite a bit compared to what some Nintendo executives and developers wanted, and Super Mario Sunshine, which went the complete opposite direction. Both were released within a year of the GameCube, and Nintendo felt confident that their new system and Mario games would return to their former glory as the market leader. As those familiar with the gaming history know, they didn't. The GameCube did even worse in market share than the Nintendo 64, and the mass market taste shifted even more toward violent, realistic games. But there were way violent games for the GameCube! Way violent games! Some of them horror! During this period, the somber mood at Nintendo intensified and the darker Mario project was revived, this time codenamed Super Mario 128. It isn't clearly exactly what happened at Nintendo during this period, as we know nothing called Super Mario 128 was ever released or publicly shown. There was that tech demo that was later reworked into Pikmin and Super Mario Sunshine, Super Mario Galaxy 2, and a little bit in Twilight Princess. The source that revealed the internal strife at Nintendo during the latter Nintendo 64 era refused to discuss what was happening during the time of the GameCube's failure, but released a prototype of Super Mario 128 online that can be played on the Wii Homebrew channel. How do you get that channel? I wanted to play that. The following is a recollection of my time playing it. The game was clearly an early beta. The title screen was nothing but white text saying Super Mario 128 against a black background. There was no options menu or save file selection either. After the title screen, the game started. Bowser's laugh from Super Mario 64 looped in the background while a plain white text box displayed dialogue. Mario, I have taken Princess Peach, and she will not survive to see the sun rise tomorrow unless you take her place. You know what to do and where to go. Do not try to stop me unless you want to hasten her death. The game certainly was going for a darker tone. After I made the text box go away, I was thrust right into the gameplay. The first thing I noticed was Mario's character model. His body was as detailed as in Super Mario Galaxy, although a little bit more realistically proportioned. But his head was taken from his SM64 character model. Obviously, his design wasn't finished yet. The setting was a sky level. There were some simple platforms in the air. The rest of the area was a blue sky with several clouds scrolling in the background. The clouds seemed more realistic than the usual cartoony puffs in Mario games. They were quite graphically impressive. There was no music or full voice samples from Mario, but there were sound effects, grunts when he jumped. The jumping was more subdued than in other Mario games. Mario didn't jump as high as he usually did and had a little bit more control over his movement in the air. The different types of jumps in every 3D Mario weren't present. I played through the level. There was nothing especially notable about the gameplay. Enemies didn't seem to have been added yet. I just jumped from platform to platform and it wasn't very challenging. Hey, wow! That's the way how I felt about Super Paper Mario. Paper Mario Sticker Star and Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. That's the way how I felt. An emptiness inside. Yay for emptiness! As I went through the level, I noticed the graphics gradually changing. The sky became more and more cloudy until it was entirely composed of clouds, and the cloud background gradually turned to a dark gray. After this, it started to rain. I reached a small platform with a toad on it. It looked like the Super Mario Galaxy model. When I landed on this platform, dialogue appeared.
We don't want you anymore, Mario. You don't belong here. Just give Bowser what he wants! Die!
After the text box went away, I no longer had control of Mario. Mario just stood there for a while, then turned around and walked off the platform. His body seemed to go limp as he fell. Eventually, it was revealed that there was a realistic modern city under the sky. The buildings looked neglected, but there were people on the street. Mario hit the ground with a realistic sounding thud, but he didn't explode or show any visible wounds. He just laid there. The people of the city kept walking by, ignoring Mario. Although I thought I saw a few glance at him with cold, somewhat angry expressions. This went on for a few minutes, and eventually people stopped appearing. Mario got up. I was back in control. But he couldn't jump at all, and had a reduced walking speed. The large buildings of the sky didn't appear interactive, so I just kept walking down the street for a while. Eventually, I found a small house that seemed out of place among the larger buildings. Please tell me it's not Luigi's Mansion's mansion. That would be kind of awkward. When I approached the door, Mario opened it. The screen went white and some black text appeared. House have torn memories. This seemed to be the level title. When I pressed a button, the screen faded back to Mario. He was inside the house from before. Everything seemed bigger than it should. It wasn't gigantic, but scaled as if Mario was a very small child. The house was filled with normal objects covered in dust and signs of neglect. There were no people on the ground floor, just things like broken lamps and rotting food. I found a door that opened to a set of stairs going down, leading to a basement. In the basement, I found a dilapidated couch and a broken TV. However, what really caught my attention was what was on the couch. Two skeletons that appeared to be children, judging by their size. Due to the scale of the house, they were still larger than Mario. I was starting to get really disturbed by now. How had a Mario game containing this been programmed to this extent? That's actually a good question. How did this happen for that? How did it work for that? I went up to the skeletons, tried pressing buttons to interact with them or the TV, but nothing seemed to happen. I was about to turn around and look elsewhere when I was nearly scared to death by a deafening loud crash coming from the game. What appeared to be Bowser seemed to have broken through the floor from below and landed in front of Mario. I say appear to be because this was nothing like the way Bowser is usually rendered. The reptilian monster in the game had Bowser's basic brownish yellow green color pattern, but looked far more threatening than any Bowser model I had seen before. It was not proportioned like Bowser knew. Its arms and legs were far longer in relation to its body and ended in razor-sharp claws. The green shell didn't look like it had spikes glued on. They were more jagged and organic looking with the same green dark color the rest of the shell had. The face had a small but intense pure black eyes and a mouth full of jagged teeth that took up far more than the face should have. Mario was cowering in fear from this thing. A dialogue box appeared.
You've kept me waiting long enough, Mario. I will taste flesh soon. Will you finally surrender? Or does Peach have to die?
I still didn't have control. Mario just stood there, shivering for several seconds before nodding his head. Bowser impaled Mario with his claws. There was no blood. Yay for a good twist! For once, no blood! Thank you! Thank you for that! But it was clear from the animations and sound effects that the sharp digits of Bowser's hands had gone through Mario's body. Good, that's a good way to write it. Just tell us an idea. Tell. Don't show. Tell, that's writing. Give us an idea. We're pretty smart. Good, that is good. The screen faded to black. In white text, another level name appeared. Mario's Eternal Home. Mario's character model was whole again when the level started. It was the only thing on the screen besides the black background. It was floating, as if in space. I couldn't somewhat control it, but it felt more like I was deciding the general direction in which Mario would tumble than fully control him. As I drifted towards no apparent destination, voices faded in. They were echoing, deep voices telling Mario that he was worthless. That the world no longer had any use for him and everyone would be better off if he was dead. High-pitched crying was layered onto the voices after a bit. It sounded like it was supposed to be Mario's cries. This really disturbed me and I found myself fighting back tears. For reasons I couldn't understand, this was affecting me on an emotional level. The voices and aimless wandering went on for several minutes until I spotted a light gray speck in the distance. I moved towards it. It took a very long time to reach it, and grew closer at a much slower rate than it should have. When I was close enough to make it out, I saw it was a tombstone. It was a very plain one with cracks in several places. When I got right next to the tombstone, I could see what was written on it. I turned the system off right after reading it. I'm not going to play the beta or hack or whatever this was again. There was a single word written on that tombstone. Innocence. Super Mario 128. Well, it did a good job in describing Bowser impaling Mario. I give major props to that. It was so nice to see something that we know will cause blood without having to go into too much detail. That was good. I liked that. It helped, and the way how the author described the game itself is somewhat suspenseful, and it did raise a few questions. It just wasn't the best way of doing it. It just kind of felt bogged down and kind of average at best. So, the best way to describe the story is it just felt average. So, C. That's all it is. It's just okay. Well, bye.